on him, according to our off-duty police that confronted him. Then he set out in his car, as you know, made 2 more videos, brandishing 5 weapons, 2 semi-automatics, and what were said to be 1,200 rounds of ammunition, threatening us, telling us to be afraid and terrified. The local government did nothing. And they did nothing for a week. The Attorney General of the state did nothing. Former Speaker of the House in South Dakota, Steve Haggard, was on the phone with him. He told Shram and I about the conversation. He was raising his voice, asking why the Attorney General wasn't stepping in and dealing with this. He was running for governor, apparently. He didn't want to touch it. Political hot potato. But we knew there had to be more involved. And indeed, we found more. As I researched what was going on in South Dakota, we found out there was a lot of Islamic money, a lot of money from Saudi Arabia, according to one report, manufacturing fire trucks and other things to ship back to Saudi Arabia. Then you have the banking industry. Most of you have credit cards in your wallet that, well, come from South Dakota because of the way, I guess, the state legislation is written that allows them to charge these exorbitant interest rates. And apparently there's a lot of Islamic money in the banking industry. So follow the money, folks, whether it's South Dakota or whether it's Texas, where the Islamists are taking over. And all the big talking Texans are going to find out real fast that, well, it's all been talk. It's been talked by a lot of your politicians. Oh, there are a few good ones there. I know a few good ones. But most of them, they're afraid, they're uneducated, they're compromised, they're weak. And Texas right now is on a trajectory to absolutely be taken down unless something changes and changes fast. Yeah, we've been warning about Yasser Qadhi for years. Everybody knows that tunes into the program. And this epic that he's building has apparently been going on for 13 years. But only recently has it made the news. What about that slogan, "Don't mess with Texas"? Apparently, that's just, again, a slogan, like "Don't tread on me," whether it's the federal government or whether it's the Islamists. They're messing with Texas. And right now, I don't see zero leadership in Texas to do anything about it. Now, to be balanced, to be fair, it is a complicated issue in one sense. Folks in Texas let the Islamists come in and they let them start building. And now, many folks in government in Texas don't know what to do because the Islamists are very good at using freedom of religion, flipping the narrative, flipping the script, and using our own liberties to bring us down. As I've talked to several, well, I shouldn't say several, as I've talked to a few leaders in state government who are totally opposed to all this, they've said, "Brandon, this needs to stop. It should have never happened." But we're trying to find ways at this point to stop what's already been built with permits, permitting, zoning. But they're using our freedom of religion against us. Give it to the Islamists. They know exactly what they're doing, and they know how to do it. And when, of course, they have politicians that are bought off, paid off, when they have the media who does the Islamophobia narrative on anyone that questions what's happening, no wonder they can get so far. Try going to Saudi Arabia and building a church. See how long that lasts. And they will have no qualms shutting you down because guess what? They don't have a First Amendment, freedom of religion, freedom of speech. We do. And they know how to use our own freedoms against us. But here today, breaking news of Islamists indiscriminately murdering innocent people. What you bet that you don't hear much about this outside of conservative programs. You might get a little blip on the screen, a little mention on the news by some corporate media outlets, but many will completely ignore it. Go check out who their stockholders are. Go check out all the Islamic money sloshing around in many of these corporations. But we're going to cover it because this is one of the 6 dominant worldviews ruling the world. Yeah, I say it all the time. There are more than 6. There are more than 6 dominant worldviews, but there are particularly 6 that are dominant. Islam is one of them. Joining me to discuss this tragedy unfolding in India, literally in the last few hours, it broke, is Shahram Hadian, former Muslim from Iran, came to America. His daddy didn't want to live under Sharia, Islamic law, got out of Iran. He's a pastor, he's been a police officer, and he's a broadcaster with us at Worldview Tube. Shahram, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Having me today under these sad circumstances once again.
Indeed. What do you make of my opening monologue that many of the politicians are bought off? They're afraid of the media. They're afraid of being labeled, but they're bought off. They're compromised. And then you have those who want to do something and they're saying, we're having a hard time because these guys are very clever at using our Constitution against us. So I'm trying to be fair to both sides here. What do you say?
No, you're absolutely correct. And you're also correct in the fact that we're trying to stop something that's already been built. That's part of the problem, isn't it? That we're so late in the game because we've been warning about this for years, right? And yet we're so late in the game because so many didn't listen when they could have prevented some of these things from happening. I see both sides of the aisle. You're absolutely right. One is those who are bought off. There's so much money that is floating around. So many of these politicians are getting money coming from foreign nations, like, for example, Qatar. We know part of what is leading to the anti-Semitism that we see even on the right is news agencies, certain broadcasters, certain podcasters that get a lot of funding from the Middle East, a lot of funding from these Arab nations like Qatar. And so they're more apt to say nice things about Islam, and they'll say really mean things about Israel. So that's part of the equation, absolutely. I do think there's another element, and that is that they are afraid. There's a cowardice there, and they have been warned. They may know the truth, but they're rejecting it. And then finally are the ones who actually want to do something, but as you said, their hands are tied because we've allowed now precedent to be built where we protected Islam under the Constitution as a religion. And, I've argued with people before who are, quote, lawyers and constitutional experts that the founders of this nation in our republic never intended for there to be an ideology that clearly is antithetical to our Constitution. Islam calls for man-made law to be overthrown, and they view the Constitution as man-made law. They view our Declaration as man-made law, and they believe that their law, Sharia, must be the higher law. Their entire purpose for existing is the imposition of Sharia on the planet. They believe that even Jesus, the prophet, the false Jesus of Islam, is going to come back and usher in Sharia. And so now we have another attack, another jihadist attack, which people are calling terrorism, but really it's jihad. Really it's part of the Islamic push to take territory. And I know we'll get into this, but that's part of, I think, what's going on here in Kashmir is that this is obviously disputed territory between India and the Islamic Republic of Pakistan.
Thankfully, President Trump is bringing attention to it. He put out on Truth Social the following today. Here's what he said, quote, deeply disturbing news out of Kashmir. The United States stands strong with India against terrorism. We pray for the souls of those lost and for the recovery of the injured. Prime Minister Modi and the incredible people of India have our full support and deepest sympathies. Our hearts are with you all, end quote. We are now being told that there are 28 dead, many injured, and we're being told, Shahram, that they went around questioning them, asking for their IDs, and even at some were being asked to remove clothing to try to determine whether or not they were Muslim or not. Would that have to do with circumcision? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, potentially if they were actually doing that, particularly in men, They would be looking to see if they were circumcised. If they're obviously, if you are a Muslim, you have to be circumcised in accordance with Sharia. So that's I think part of it. Part of it would be that the asking of questions is very routine that we see throughout the world when these types of attacks happen. We saw this with ISIS in years past. We saw it in Syria right now with what is going on with the Christians there. They're asked to renounce their Christianity, or will you stand with Islam? And if you answer incorrectly, they shoot you in the head or they kill you on the spot, which is what's happening here, sadly.
All right, we'll come back. Let's get a little bit more on what's happening tragically in India with the Islamists. And if Shahram thinks this will get any traction outside of really conservative media. And then there's a new video out related to Yasser Qadi. We're going to play that for you as the Islamists seek to take down Texas. It seems like they're probably going to do it, folks. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. Worldviewradio.com. Don't forget to stay tuned for Crosstalk with Jim Schneider coming up at the top of the hour, 2 p.m. Central on the VCY, America Radio Network. Their website's vcy.org. V as in Victor, vcy.org. Shahram joins me, Shahram Hadian. His website is tilministry.com, tilministry.com. Do I have that right, Shahram? That is right.
That's correct.
All right, good.
Absolutely. tilministry.com.
I have a million websites in my head of all you different hosts and guests, so I never know if I'm getting them right, but there you go.
No problem.
Let's go back to India real quick. Do you believe this is going to make any news aside from conservative outlets? I mean, right now, almost when I search, it seems to be almost a media blackout.
There is a media blackout. I did the same thing. Media blackout. You have, some of the, Al Jazeera, New York Times, New York Post, some of them posting. Of course, a lot of them, none of them are saying this is Islamic, right? Not one of them has said this is Islamic, but we know it's Islamic because that region is in dispute. This is the region, folks, that is between India and Pakistan and Kashmir. India controls it. It was independent in 2019. India removed that status. They took control over Kashmir. And Pakistan wants it back. So a lot of what has happened here, I think, also is in relationship to the fact that the Pakistanis hate the Indians hate the Pakistanis, but it goes beyond that. Pakistan is a nation, Brandon, as you know, we've talked about, that is governed by Sharia. In fact, I was just reading an article. There is right now a Christian man that is facing a death sentence for the charge of blasphemy because he desecrated a Quran, because he burnt the Quran, because he's Christian. They have put him on trial and they've given him a death sentence. In fact, when this happened in 2023, the Muslims came in and burned their entire neighborhood. Hundreds of houses and churches were torched. Thousands of people were forced to leave simply because one man desecrated or burned because he hated the Quran, which I hate. I hate the Quran. I don't burn it. I want to expose it. But this is the same Pakistan that the state of Texas declared March 23rd as Pakistan Day. This is the same country that is fueling these Muslim jihadists to go and kill indiscriminately, which is really not indiscriminate, because as you said, they targeted people. They're targeting those who are not Muslim. They want to make sure that they don't kill devout Muslims. Yet in Pakistan, they will kill the cult Muslims, like in the Ahmadiyya. That's a very small cult within Islam. The true Muslims consider them not to be real Muslims. So this is Pakistan, and this is what's in Texas, and this is Yasir Qadhi. So number one, there's been very little reporting on this, other than J.D. Vance. Obviously, he was in India at the time this happened. His wife is obviously from India. And so that's what happened there. So I think that's probably why the president got wind of it, because J.D. Vance probably tweeted something about it or made a comment about it. But this isn't terrorism. This is jihadism. This is Islamic tactic.
Now, why do you separate? Why are you saying it's not terrorism, it's jihad? Aren't they the same thing?
Well, they are commanded to cause terror. So in that case, the Quran's very specific that yes, they are to cause terror to non-Muslims. So in that case, we could say yes, it's terrorism. But the problem is when governments like India and our government use the term terrorism, they're disassociating it from true Islam. That's the problem. Whereas if we say it is jihad or jihadism, you can't then separate it from Islam, because jihad is the key tenet. Some say the sixth pillar of Islam. It's a nice way of saying, oh, these were not Muslims, or this doesn't represent Islam. This is simply radical or bad people, or as most of the news outlet. I mean, every article that I said, it's like, here's an article. It said militants, right? The word militants. No mention that these are Muslim individuals that are killing, just like the Muslim individuals that over the weekend, Easter weekend, killed at least 56 Christians in Nigeria, at least. So where is the reporting? Where is the reporting about the massacre of Christians around the world? Where are, again, the Muslims like Yasir Qadhi? Yasir Qadhi should come out and denounce this, shouldn't he? Yasir Qadhi, being from Pakistan, should come out immediately and denounce this as not representing Islam. Don't denounce terrorism, denounce this as being permitted in Islam. They'll never do that. They'll never do that, because this is permitted in Islam.
There is a picture making its rounds on social media. Pamela Geller has now put it out as well, as well as other sources. I cannot, vouch for its authenticity, but this is what's going around. This picture of I think it's probably a Hindu man laying on the ground, supposedly deceased, with his wife. These are supposed to be newlyweds, with his wife sitting next to him. And apparently he's deceased. And this is what's making the rounds. But again, largely blacked out in the corporate media world. So there you go.
But by the way, Brandon, let's not forget that India right now, most people do not know this, it is the second most populated Muslim country on the planet, because it is soon going to catch up to Indonesia, because they have about 13-14% of the Indian population now have been forced converted to Islam. Forced converted, not willingly. They're not converting willingly. So you have a major problem in India. They're going to be dealing with a major problem, just like we're dealing with a major problem here in America, because of the fact that the Muslim population is now, I mean, when you have about 1.4 billion people and 14% of that are Muslims, that is a lot of Muslims on the planet. And as I said, they're right now second, just behind Indonesia, as the most populated Islamic country. And Pakistan wants India back. Pakistan wants to take over India. So where is the benign Pakistan? Again, where is the Texas legislature? Those Republicans. Go ahead. You got. Well, are they playing the video here?
We have video footage that looks like the same gal wearing the same jacket.
Yeah.
Go back and check. So I think that's her standing up, and her husband was the one that murdered, newlyweds. So there are pictures of people laying around in this village, dead, slaughtered. There are people on their phones probably calling for help, and There are people there talking about it and being interviewed, or I should say being interviewed, talking to each other about it. This one here, of course, is the one that, yep, there she is. She's walking back toward the body of her husband, this newlywed couple.
Did you see the clothes? You saw that guy had his clothes up?
Yep. So they were going around and checking to see if they were circumcised or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Isn't that, I mean, that's how sick, that's how disgusting this is. And by the way, that's a high tourist area there, that part of Kashmir, very high tourist area, lots of foreigners there, and that's what we don't know right now. So your question is very valid. Like, will this gain traction in Europe? Are the Europeans going to report on this? Are the Brits going to report on this? When the Prime Minister of UK came out last month bemoaning about the poor Muslims during their Islamophobia Awareness Month. How about in Austria? I don't know if you saw the headline that Austria now is the #1 children in their schools. #1, the highest, 40-something% is now are now Muslims in Austria. Are they gonna say something? Are the Europeans gonna come out?
No, that'd be Islamophobia.
That'd be Islamophobia.
And by the way,
what we're doing is Islamophobia.
Exactly right, Shram. If we were in the UK right now, we would be in big trouble, I'm sure.
Arrested and given 2, 3, 4, 5 years in prison.
We're now
how many times have you covered on your show?
We're now being told the death toll is up to 32.
There you go. Look at all those bodies.
And the military, it looks like the military has arrived, covering them with plastic sheets. Back to what you're saying. How many times have we what, Sharam?
How many times have we reported on this? How many times have we said and warned people that, you know, and going back to your point earlier about how some of our elected officials have their hands tied, I would argue they've allowed their hands to be tied. Because had they listened earlier, had they listened in South Dakota when we were there in 2017, had people listened to us when I was in Idaho and Washington State and Minnesota and all these other states that we've been warning them to fight this legally, to not give Islam cover under the First Amendment, to not just say blanketly, oh, it's just a religion of peace, to don't go. So part of it is, yes, they're right. Their hands are tied because the Islamic movement is so powerful and they have so many lawyers and they have so much lawfare. But there's no doubt if you and I were in the UK right now or in France or in Germany, we would have been arrested long ago and we would have been shut down long ago. So that's why this is so desperately needed. And man, I pray, and it's sad that it has to take these type of events to keep bringing this into the forefront of people. And by the way, this is not to criticize the president, because like you said, I'm glad that he came out and made a statement. But at the same time, why did the president and the faith office celebrate the iftar dinner at the White House when the president said to the Muslims, his quote, I actually have his quote here where he said to them, there was the invitation to the White House dinner, and at the end he says, while I'm president, I will be there for you. Because he was talking about, we're going to keep our promises to the Muslim community, build the Abraham Accords. So those same Muslims that are sitting at that iftar dinner at the White House are the same Muslims that are buying out America, that are buying out our politicians. They're using their money and their influence. They're contributing, and now it seems like the political parties think the Muslims, by the way, right today, right, there's a Supreme Court case. I don't know if you covered this earlier. There's a Supreme Court case right now before the Supreme Court where 2 Muslim parents sued the school district in Maryland because they did not want their Muslim child to be exposed to the trans ideology, drag queens and all this stuff. That case is right now before the Supreme Court, right now as we speak. And all these leftist organizations are there. Where are the Islamic organizations? Apparently, this is according to Laura Loomer. So I don't know. I mean, you could validate it or not validate, but according to Laura Loomer, who's reporting outside the Supreme Court in D.C., she's saying they don't see any Muslim organizations. Where's CARE? Where's the Muslim Brotherhood Front Group? Where's CARE? CARE should be there. CARE should be there supporting this Muslim family that is trying to fight the state by saying, we don't want you to indoctrinate our Muslim child in the LGBTQ trans drag ideology. So there's a very great danger right now in our country in that our conservative politicians are going to see Islam become more conservative for a while as they're taking over. And that's a trap.
And we have, again, a picture released by the Vice President Vance's office of him in India with the leader of India. And want us to wonder, do you think this was a random terrorist attack? Or do you think they did it because they knew the vice president was in India? Let me have Shahram respond to that. And then we have a new video clip by Yasser Qadi about Epic. You got to hear this. This has just been uncovered by Amy Meek. We'll get to it right after this break. Don't go away.
But with Brandon, it's always cutting edge stuff happening in the world. And it's not just from the political angle, because you can get that on other platforms, but it's always from the biblical angle. So you're dealing with a guy that loves Jesus, you're dealing with a guy that's very intelligent, you're dealing with a guy that is cutting edge conservatism, and you're dealing with a guy that wants to be biblical all at the same time. And so for that reason alone, I hope many, many people will not just lift up his ministry in prayer, but will also financially get behind it, because from the angle I'm trying to describe, he really is the only game in town. And we desperately need it in these last days. Can I get an amen to that?
Welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. Worldviewradio.com. We're going to ask our radio and TV audience to pray for us as we have been working quietly behind the scenes for months. And we are leaving for the Washington, D.C. area. We'll be in D.C. May 5th through the 9th. May 5th through the 9th. We have secured the necessary press passes to be up on Capitol Hill on the House side, then the Senate side. We have interviews set up with members of the House and the Senate. Then we also have been given White House press corps passes for the whole week. And we'll endeavor to be going in there and reporting from there and perhaps taking part in any press briefings that are available that week. We also have a lot of interviews set up. I have mentioned and have mentioned to you already. One interview is with Xi Van Fleet. She was born and raised in China, forced after high school to go live in the countryside and work and be in a propaganda training program. She eventually escaped, came to America, but she's warning Americans. She's warning Americans that the very ideology and worldview of Mao's communist revolution is being carried out in America. And you say, well, Brandon, we have Donald Trump in the White House. We have nothing to worry about. Well, he's only there for a very short period of time. And we already have the Marxists like Jamie Raskin and others, and I think that's what he is, warning that there are going to be repercussions, not only in America, but for leaders around the world that work with President Trump's administration once they return to power. That's what he has said. I'll be reporting on that tonight on Worldview Report. So we also have many states that are continuing to carry out their Marxist ideologies. We have an exclusive interview with her at the museum, the Anti-Communist Museum. Have you ever heard of that museum? I had not until a few months ago. The Anti-Communist Museum. Had a wonderful conversation with their director. And may I say, they're rolling out the red carpet for us. They are making their museum fully available to us to film, to grab B-roll footage, to put together an entire program about the Anti-Communist Museum and the history that they've detailed, including conducting there at the museum my interview with Mrs. Fleet. That's just one of many projects that we're going out there to work on. We've also paid close to $1,000 for the necessary filming permits to the National Park Service for filming at major historic monuments as we put together some very educational, historical, and patriotic programming, particularly as we head toward 2026 and the 250th anniversary of America's founding. If you appreciate all that we're doing and these new projects that, by the way, as we've discussed here with our team, we're going to be doing some stuff that will last for years. Some of the programming and the filming and the historical and patriotic and educational programs that we're going to turn them into will last for many, many, many years. Some of you have grandchildren that are too young to understand it, but in a few years they will, and it'll be here for them. And isn't that what we need to do? Educate our young people about the Christian world view. Look, not all of our founders were Christians. Many of them were, but even those that weren't understood the importance of the general principles of Christianity in our government. And today it is a battle. There is a battle between Marxism and globalism and Satanism and the Christian worldview. As the battle is on between God's kingdom and Satan's kingdom, I can tell you flat out who wins this one, right? Daniel 2, verse 44 tells us God's kingdom comes. It crushes Satan's kingdom, and of God's kingdom, there'll be no end. Can I also let you in on another secret, folks? We deliberately use our network, our programming, our specials to entice many, many people who would maybe never walk through the doors of a church. Many of them, they watch our network because they appreciate our coverage on economics and the border and, law, national security, geopolitics. But you know what? We're taking what's common to the culture and we're turning it into a pulpit. No one can say, I never heard the gospel from Brandon House and Worldview Tube. I spent hours watching their program. They had plenty to say about the national security issues on the border or geopolitics or Islam, but I never heard the gospel from them. No, they'll never say that because, folks, we deliberately have created a network that we hope is winsome and informative, educational, but also evangelistic. And I'm not about to apologize for that. Because, folks, we could reclaim America and turn it back into the 1950s, 1960s of June and Ward Cleaver. And it would only be a more family-friendly nation from which people would die and go to eternity in hell. What good would that accomplish, right? So you bet. We're using the issues of the day to help them understand what's happening, see it through the lens of a Christian worldview. And then maybe after they have gotten here and listened to what we're saying about so many issues, as I've talked about, then they hear the gospel. Yep. That's our little secret weapon here, is we use the news and information to draw in a crowd and then give them Jesus. And that's one reason why we're going to Washington. We're going to go there. We're going to grab up a lot of great interviews. We're going to grab up a lot of great historic and patriotic and historical footage. We're going to turn it into programs that many Americans want to see. They want to know more about their history and their founding of the nation. Some of them want their children and grandchildren to see it because it's not being taught in the schools. And then they're going to hear about some real history when God took on the form of man and laid down his life as a ransom for sinners. So if you appreciate what we're doing and how we're doing it, we appreciate your support. WorldviewFoundation.com, we're going to bring in not only our normal monthly budgets to keep the network going, but for special projects like this. So thank you for your support at WorldviewFoundation.com, and consider praying for us, will you? For safety, for health, all the technical equipment to work, bringing a couple camera guys. And we also have some very interesting interviews, and we're trying for more. So maybe pray the Lord opens a few doors. We're still trying to get pushed open for some exclusive interviews. But either way, we've got a lot of great things set up, and we're very excited about our trip. Sharam, your website is tilministry.com. Let's go to, did I have a question I posed to you before the break?
We were just talking about the media coverage, and I think you were talking about the Yasser Qadhi video you were going to play.
Okay. Yeah. All right, well, here it is. Here, this is Amy Meek has uncovered this. Here we go, Yasser Qadhi.
Can you imagine an entire city? Nothing this ambitious has ever been planned before in North America. And there's only one community that inshallah ta'ala can do it. And that is our community right here, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Say inshallah. What if we were to take the best of what Epic has to offer, and then rather than just 100 houses, maybe 1,000+ houses, rather than just one masjid and one facility, a magnificent complex, rather than just an apartment complex that happens to be here, a purpose-built apartment complex, rather than just one subdivision, an entire city. We are one of the most active and one of the most watched and one of the most prestigious masjids in all of North America. Bihamdillahi wa fadlihi, not because of me or you. This is Allah's blessings on us. Now, the board and all of us, we thought to ourselves, what if, rather than just accidentally these factors coming together, we actually analyzed what made Epic so significant, and then decided to plan an entire, not just subdivision, not just some cul-de-sacs and an apartment complex. No, what if we were to take the best of what Epic has to offer, and then rather than just 100 houses, maybe 1,000+ houses, rather than just one masjid and one facility, a magnificent complex, rather than just an apartment complex that happens to be here, a purpose-built apartment complex, rather than just one subdivision, an entire city that we advertise to the entire American subcontinent that, look, Epic 1 was such an amazing success. What do you think would happen if we bring forth Epic 2.0? What is going to happen if we bring forth Epic 2.0, taking the best of Epic 1.0 and then purpose building an entire facility, an entire city, not just a subdivision, an entire massive plot of land right here in Dallas. Not 100 houses, 1,000 houses. This is going to be the opportunity of a game changer for the American da'wah scene. Can you imagine an entire city, meaning a district of Dallas, this is still in Dallas, don't worry, right? An entire sub-city of Dallas, where purpose-built, we have from top to bottom an infrastructure. We have apartment complexes. We have people's home for elderly, those that need to have elderly people's home, purpose-built assisted facility. We have entire schools. Can you imagine the potential of such a city? Nothing this ambitious has ever been planned before in North America. And there's only one community that inshallah ta'ala can do it, and that is our community right here, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Say inshallah. We are going to go from Epic 1. Epic 1's still going to be here. We're still going to be the best. But Epic 1 is going to take the best that it has and then bring about an Epic 2.0, inshaAllah ta'ala.
Well, there you go. What do you make of that, Shahram?
Well, what can I say, but we told you so? I mean, I don't know. Is that a time? Do we finally have a moment where we can say we told you so?
Yeah, I think we can.
Where they're saying this is what we're going to do. So okay, let's agree with a couple of things he said. This has never been done in North America, although there are other enclaves that are like it. And I've told you before that we're fighting one right now in the Minnesota area. That was about Lino Lakes. They were planning 3, but they've kind of backed off right now. They're still trying to get the 1 done. And there's some pushback there, at least, thank God, from that community, a few people from that community. And I'll be there next month trying to, wake some people up. But they were planning 3. And Epic obviously is much larger. So let's agree that this is new strategy here in North America. He's absolutely correct. Because what we've seen in Western Europe, for example, is they take over existing areas and begin to push out the non-Muslims and the foreigners, turning them into these no-go zones, these urban sensitive zones, which become Sharia zones. And they began to build power that way. We've seen that all throughout Western Europe. I just mentioned Austria. We have Sweden and Norway. We have the Netherlands. We have Germany, France, the UK, of course, Spain. So we have that. But this is brand new. Now they're going to build their own city from the ground up. And as he said, here's the other thing I agree with. This is self-enclosed. So now he's talking about we'll have the school, the mosque, the senior housing, cemetery, we'll have grocery stores. And it made me think, Brandon, why are the powers to be allowing this? Why are the elected officials allowing this? And for years we've known that our cities especially have been targeted for sustainability under Agenda 2021, Agenda 2030, globalism. We saw obviously everything go on steroids with COVID and the World Economic Forum. We know the Saudis are building a city in the middle of the desert called Neom. They've been trying. What if these Muslim-centric cities are part of the smart cities movement?
Oh, wow. Wow.
That's why they're being...
That's why they're allowing it. That's why they're allowing it. These are going to be Islamic 15-minute cities.
That's right.
1-800-347-9829. 1-800. Wow, Shahram. 1-800-347-9829. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions. 1-800-347-9829. Get on board, folks. We'd love to hear your thoughts about this. 1-800-347-9829. Hello, I'm Brandon House. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that, well, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldviewtalk.com. Oh, while you're there, not only do they have cell phones that aren't tracking you, you can find out about how to get a satellite phone. Should the whole system go down and you want to communicate with a family member or a loved one, you might want to have a satellite phone. Or how about their solar generators? They have great solar generators. Check them all out right now. Worldviewtalk.com. Worldviewtalk.com. All right, welcome back. 1-800-347-9829. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions. You can also email us, Brannon at worldviewtube.com. Brannon, Brannon at worldviewtube.com. For those of you too reluctant to jump on the phone live on radio, there you go. That's an option. Otherwise, we'd love to hear your voice. 1-800-347-9829. Let's start out with line one. Joe from Wisconsin. Hi, Joe.
Hey. The whole thing has got me kind of troubled of, if these people want it, it seems like there's so many little groups of them, Muslims all over in our United States still, that if they wanted to jump us, we'd be having a war instantly.
Well,
is that true? What are we going to do about this? What is the president going to do something about this?
Well, that's a great question, Joe. In fact, I have an article over at worldviewreport.com, your daily aggregated news site, worldviewreport.com. Will there be civil war in Europe? Brand new article today. And it's about the mass Muslim migration in Europe. And how ironic, you call in today and ask these questions. Are they going to jump us? Are we going to go to war? I pray not. But here we have an article dated today, April 22nd, 2025, at jihadwatch.org. Will there be civil war in Europe over all the Muslims entering Europe and then seeking to, many of them, kill people that are non-Muslim, like we just saw today in Kashmir in India? Shahram, what do you think? Can you answer Joe's question?
The answer can be found in understanding their agenda, the Islamic agenda. That's where it leads. It ultimately leads to the place in history where they caused the civil war, right? This is not the first time that civil war came to Europe. We know that the first Islamic conquest that they tried in Europe after the death of Muhammad, you have the Battle of Tours in 732, you have the Gates of Vienna later. So Europe had to go to civil war back then to fight off the Islamic takeover. That's history. So the only option left on the table is either you succumb. Well, there's three options, right? One is we win them to Christ, as you said. That's the only way that they can change. Their hearts can be changed, as my heart was changed 26 years ago, is the gospel of Jesus Christ. Number two, you succumb. You surrender to it, and you start as a second-class citizen, like many people in Europe right now, and then you ultimately are going to be converted. Or number three, you have to fight. And I don't see the will in this nation. Like you said, none of us want that. That's not what we want. We want to be able to protect our constitutional republic. We want to be able to protect our laws. We want to be able to say that,
we can't even get the politicians to stand up and fight with words. With words, right?
With words.
And the pastors, sadly, of the country. How many of them are bringing you in and Usama? Zero.
Yeah. Very.
I mean, you would think right now would be the time to say, hey, we got all of them here. Let's learn what they believe and then use that to share the gospel with them. Hey, do you want to know about our personal God who took on the form of man, laid down his life as a ransom for sinners that you can know personally? Because your God's not very personal, is he? He would never lay down his life for anyone. He would never take on the form of a man. He would never have a son. But we don't.
Amen.
We don't. Let's go to Jim, line 2. Jim, thank you for calling in, Jim.
Yes, Brandon, thank you for all that you guys do in Sharam. It's great that you expose this the way you do. It's too bad nobody else, none of the mainstream media does that. But my comment is just that we're so taken over already. You have how many Muslims in our government that have taken the oath to support and uphold our Constitution on the Quran? That barely ever got in the news. It doesn't get talked about. And the fact that they take our laws, they take the Constitution, use it against us when it's convenient for them, but have openly made comments, and it's not broadly advertised or talked about, but they won't uphold our Constitution. They have no use for it, but yet they'll use it against us.
Absolutely. Great comment. Sharam, quick answer if we go back to the phone lines or lit up.
Quick answer is, again, Muslim Brotherhood strategy number one, right? Sabotage. That's exactly what they said. We'll come in within, sabotage, using your miserable hands. They use our laws against us to sabotage our own house, and we're allowing them. That's why Jim is making an excellent point. Had we simply said, no, we're not going to allow Islam to be protected under the First Amendment as simply a religion, none of this would be happening right now.
Don in Kansas, line 3. Hi, Don. Don, thanks for calling in, Don.
First of all, I called last week regarding Pakistan, and I wanted to flesh out a few more things. When Pakistan and India face off, it's always a time of great nervousness for the world because they both have the bomb. You know, I talked about atoms for peace last week, and India and Pakistan both have atomic bombs. And so it's very dangerous. The other thing about Islam is a lot of people don't understand. They have an eschatology much like a false eschatology of Christians, where they believe there's going to be an Armageddon-like event that will bring in the Mahdi, which is like an Antichrist figure. But when it comes to Pakistan again and Texas embracing them, it just makes my heart sick, because a lot of sons and daughters of Texas died in the war on global terrorism. And when we fought that war, guess where we found public enemy number one? Osama bin Laden. He was hiding in plain sight right down the street from a Pakistani military installation.
Wow, great call, Don. I got to go due to time constraints, but thank you, Don. Don from Kansas. Wayne, line 4 from South Dakota. Go ahead, Wayne.
Thank you. Yasser Qadi said he wants to build, first an apartment complex, then a city, and then he goes on. The unspoken part is, then another city, until a state is taken over, and then the country itself. And that's one thing people don't understand. Just like your last caller said, they're well on their way. They've been working at this for years while we've been largely asleep at the switch. And President Trump, as much as I support him in many ways, I think he's got a blind spot there. He's got to understand how big of a threat the fundamental Islamists are to this country.
You got that right. Thank you. Thank you, Wayne. Linda writes in, blessings, bless you, Christian brothers. May Jesus cover you with his safety. We are in dire straits. May the Lord Jesus have mercy on us. I'm a lifelong listener to you, Shahram, Usama, and others. My prayers for our world. Yep. Well, it is a spiritual battle, and this is one of the 6 dominant worldviews, and it is a satanic cult, a death cult, as sadly we saw today in Pakistan. Shahram Hadian's been my guest. His website, tilministry.com. He also broadcasts on World YouTube. Stay tuned for Crosstalk, and thank you for being here. Until next time at Brandon House, may God save America.
This has been...
That's our broadcast on those stations, and we're back now with WROS and World YouTube out of Jacksonville, Florida. You're still with us, Shahram?
Yes, sir, right here.
All right, so where do we go from here, you think? I mean, we keep reporting on this. Nothing seems to be changing. What is it going to take for Americans to wake up? Everybody went back to sleep after 9/11, right? And, you know, I'm afraid we're going to... Look, I've been saying it, I'm going to say it again. I think we're headed for our own October 7th.
I agree. Brandon, one of the callers mentioned that, right? Like he said, when will they turn on us? That's what you and I have been concerned about, right? We have obviously right now a very perilous situation between Israel and Iran. If we kept saying, you know, if Israel hits Iran in a significant way, that's not just, you know, smaller attacks or taking out, the head of Hamas in Iran, things like that. Could they retaliate here? And that's what we've been very concerned about, is not just, paper cuts, but a very, very massive, coordinated, multiple attacks. It is unfortunately, so look, I personally, as a Christian, as a pastor, I have to go back to our churches. I don't think, right now, unfortunately, who are the spiritual advisors to the president? Who is advising him on this ideology, as I mentioned during the radio broadcast, if he's bringing in and doing an iftar dinner? And unfortunately, his faith advisor, Paula White, is the one who was celebrating it on her X or on her Instagram. So if they're confused about what Islam is, and as you said, one of these 6 dominant worldviews that are part of this end-time deception, the president's not getting the right advice. They're not getting the counsel to understand that you can't placate these Muslims. Right now, my concern is the Islamic community is playing conservative. We get it. We should get it when they're liberal in the sense of that's the lower house. But they now, as they transition, they're playing conservative. They're playing, hey, we're for Republicans, we're supporting this stuff, and it's all a tactic in the movement. So where do we go from here? Our first prayer has to be that the body of Christ is got to reawaken to the spiritual threat. It's a spiritual threat. It's the greatest killer of Christians on the planet. And so if that doesn't happen, I don't see a path for the government, for our leaders, because I believe the morality and the moral clarity has to come from within the body of Christ. And I'm not saying en masse with so many of our lukewarm churches. I'm talking about at least a remnant, even a remnant that can stand up and say, all right, we get it now. We cannot coexist. We either got to go on the massive evangelical gospel offensive with Muslims, and at the same time, we better start petitioning our elected officials to say we will not accept the Islamization of our cities and our states. We will. Texas. How many mega churches are in Texas? And Dallas, Jeffers Church. Where is Olstein? He's in Houston area? He's in Houston. Mm-hmm. But there's so many mega churches that are in the Dallas area. Where are they? Where are they right now that should be packing out the county commissions, the city hall meetings, packing out against these elected officials saying, we will not accept these Muslim-centric cities that I love what your caller said. Yasser Qadhi said it without saying it. Epic 1, Epic 2, Epic 3, Epic 4, Epic 10, Epic 100. That's the plan. And when that happens, the only thing left on the table, unfortunately, is going to be civil war.
And let me just
I don't want to see that.
No, I don't either. And I will say that I believe, again, I could be 100% wrong. I pray the Lord returns and
Yes.
this problem, the rapture would solve a lot of this, right?
Amen.
Well, it'd solve all of it, but at least for us. But let's say we got another 20 years here. I believe what we have right now is a reprieve and a time for families to further prepare. Because what I see coming, if we don't see the return of the Lord taking the church home soon, is in the next few years, we're going to see an increase of Christians being specifically targeted.
Yeah.
And I want to know, is the church in America ready? Is the church ready in America to also reach out to our Jewish friends and the synagogues? Jesus commends those in Matthew 25 who do that, right? Who minister to those, my brethren, the Jews. And obviously, many of those Jews were the ones who became believers in Yeshua, right?
Yes.
But I think we see too many Americans squandering this period of grace.
Yes.
Instead of using it for preparation, they're using it for other things that are not eternal. Shahram Hadian, folks, you appreciate what we're doing. We do need your support. WorldviewFoundation.com. Please go there now. WorldviewFoundation.com. May God save America. Take care.
You are watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
You're good to see you. How's life treating you today? Well, Saul,